current way to get around the 6-month rule, and like a buy to sell rather than selling it to a cash buyer on a mortgage basis? I know there's like Virgin Money will do sometimes, but is there any other ways around it?
Right. So what we're talking about is buying a property, doing something to it, usually, and then selling it. And the hurdle that you come up against, that some lenders want you to own it for 6 months before they'll process the application. So it's another variation of the 6-month ownership restriction or the 6-month rule. Okay, now it depends who you want to sell to. Investors buying in their personal name are probably the toughest ask on that, because there's a concentration of lenders in that sphere of the market that don't want to lend until you, as the seller, have owned it for 6 months. Okay. If you're selling to investors or landlords and they're using a limited company vehicle, that doesn't apply so much because they're not what I call the vanilla buy-to-let lenders. So you could want to sell them, but then would you want to sell to them because they pay? They want to pay such a high price. They want a discount. Okay. So main residence buyers, within the first 6 months of you buying it, they will not have full access to all the potential lenders on the market, but they will have some access. So they would have a reduced option, a reduced choice of lenders. Now, what that could actually come down to is how much they've fallen in love with your property, because they're going to buy an emotion. And if they really want your property, and you might say to them, or maybe their broker would say to them, look, the seller hasn't owned it or I haven't owned it for 6 months. So it's no problem you getting a mortgage, you just won't have such a big choice of lenders. But you still probably find some reasonably competitive rates. So, and again, if they've really set their heart on your property, it's feasible that they would say, that's okay, we'll get the best one we can. Now,
would you point them to a broker if a residential normal buyer came and said, obviously a lot of residential buyers don't have brokers, would you say, look, I've not owned it for 6 months, so I'd advise you to go via a broker if you really want to buy it, because obviously...
Well, now it depends how you're selling it. If you're selling it through an agent, probably the broker's already there. It's in the office, it's in the agent's office. So you just say to the agent that, look, when you get buyers for my property, just bear in mind I haven't held it 6 months, so just explain that yeah, just explain to that. Now, the big thing of people that do this and do it successfully is transparency. So you need to be completely open with everyone on the buying side. The buyer certainly, and even more importantly, if they're a first-time buyer. They've never done it before, they don't know what should happen and shouldn't happen, so they'll get spooked by the smallest thing. And transparency is important, because if they find out that you've been less than transparent on that, the natural question to ask is, what else are you hiding that you haven't told us yet? So I think perhaps we pull out. So complete transparency, and again, use that phrase that I said earlier. Our business is we find nasty homes and make them into lovely homes for people to live in. Nasty houses, lovely homes. So transparency with your buyer, the agent, the buyer's mortgage broker, and the buyer's solicitor. Transparency right the way down the line, and if they really like your property, that will overcome the uncompetitive to a degree mortgages you can get.